Have you ever felt that helping others consumes you from within? Carl Jung, a pioneer of depth psychology, warns us that even the noblest intentions can hide shadows capable of devastating the soul. The need to help may seem like a noble and selfless inclination, but according to Jung, this motivation often conceals unconscious aspects that require deep exploration. Helping others can become a way to avoid facing our own insecurities or unresolved internal needs. In this context, the act of helping transforms into a mirror that reflects our own personal deficiencies. The origin of this savior illusion may lie in the early stages of psychological development, where we seek validation through others. We believe that by solving the problems of others, we will obtain the recognition we so desperately desire. However, this model can be destructive, as instead of healing our internal wounds, helping becomes an escape, and at the same time, a way to build an identity based on the role of protector or solver. For example, a person who is constantly at the service of their family or friends may feel a sense of emptiness when there are no problems to solve. This indicates an emotional dependence on the act of helping. The person doesn't help because they are full of energy and inner peace, but because their identity has been built around the perception of being needed. This behavior perpetuates a vicious cycle where help does not come from abundance, but from scarcity. Furthermore, there is a real risk of unbalancing relationships. By positioning ourselves as saviors, we create a dynamic of unequal power, where others depend on our intervention. This not only limits their personal growth, but also feeds our own ego, reinforcing the illusion that we are doing good. Justly, Jung proposes an alternative, conscious helping. This involves recognizing our deep motivations before acting. When we understand that we are not responsible for solving everyone's problems, we free both others and ourselves. We learn to help from a place of balance, respecting each person's individual growth process. Help then becomes a true act of love, rather than a projection of our internal needs. The hero complex is a powerful archetype that, according to Jung, can be as inspiring as it is limiting. This archetype drives us to take on the role of savior in situations that often exceed our capacities or responsibilities. While the hero seeks the best for others, they often do so at the expense of their own well-being. This complex stems from a cultural narrative deeply rooted in humanity. From Greek myths to modern stories, the hero always emerges as the one who, despite all obstacles, saves the day. However, in real life, the hero doesn't always have a happy ending. By shouldering the burdens of others, they risk emotional exhaustion and losing sight of their own needs. A common example is parents who try to solve all of their children's problems, from academic to emotional. While these actions arise from a sincere desire to protect and guide, they deprive children of the opportunity to learn to manage their own challenges. In this case, the hero complex affects not only the parent, but also harms the child's autonomy development. The weight of this complex also manifests in the professional realm. Leaders who take on all the responsibilities of the team, believing that everything would collapse without them, end up burning out and, paradoxically, weakening the team's ability to function independently. This self-imposed burden is not only unsustainable, but also creates a dynamic of dependence that benefits neither party. Jung invites us to reflect on the inherent limitations of the hero complex. Recognizing that we cannot save everyone is a crucial step toward individuation, the process of integrating all parts of our psyche. Instead of carrying the world on our shoulders, we can learn to be a support for others without losing sight of our own stability. This doesn't mean abandoning those in need, but rather offering our support from a place of balance and clarity. Moreover, it is important to differentiate between helping and controlling. The hero, in their desire to protect, can fall into the trap of wanting to control the lives of others, believing they know what is best for them. This attitude, although well-intentioned, can be perceived as invasive or paternalistic. Learning to respect the boundaries and processes of others is essential for transforming the hero complex into a genuine support tool. Finally, Jung emphasizes the importance of taking care of ourselves while helping others. Being a hero does not mean sacrificing ourselves completely. On the contrary, it involves recognizing that our inner strength comes from balancing giving and receiving. Only when we are at peace with ourselves can we be a true source of support for those around us. Altruism, valued as one of the greatest human virtues, can hide a darker side. Jung warns us that it is often behind many altruistic actions, linked to our need for recognition, power, or personal validation. What appears to be an act of generosity can actually be a manifestation of the ego's desire to feel indispensable. Imagine someone who constantly offers to help with everything, even when not asked. This person may be seeking admiration from others or trying to bolster their self-esteem through external gratitude. Although these actions may seem selfless, they are deeply rooted in the need for approval. This type of altruism, rather than building authentic relationships, perpetuates dynamics of control and dependence. Furthermore, this shadow of the ego can lead to passive-aggressive behavior. For example, if the altruist does not receive the expected gratitude or validation, they may feel hurt or harbor resentment. This resentment reveals that their help was not as unconditional as it seemed. Here is where altruism becomes a tool to nourish the ego, rather than a true expression of love or empathy. The shadow of altruism can also manifest in the professional realm, especially in roles like that of a teacher, therapist, or leader. It is easy to fall into the trap of believing that we know what is best for others. This belief, although motivated by the desire to help, often reflects an ego projection seeking to assert its superiority rather than empower others. This type of assistance limits them, hindering their personal growth. Jung emphasizes that the key to overcoming these shadows is constant self-observation. Recognizing our hidden motivations allows us to transform our actions into an authentic expression of compassion. This does not mean we should stop helping, but rather that we must do so from a place of authenticity, expecting nothing in return. When we help from the heart rather than the ego, we benefit not only others but also grow as individuals. The martyr archetype has been exalted in many cultures as a symbol of sacrifice and nobility. However, Jung reminds us that this archetype can be deeply harmful if lived unconsciously. The martyr, in its zeal to give everything for others, often forgets itself, falling into a cycle of self-destruction and resentment. One of the main characteristics of the martyr is its inability to set boundaries. It believes its worth lies in how much it is willing to sacrifice, whether that's time, energy, or even happiness. However, this perpetual sacrifice not only drains the martyr, but also creates an unhealthy dependence among those around them. For instance, a parent who constantly sacrifices for their children may deprive them of the opportunity to learn responsibility and independence. Another problematic aspect of the martyr archetype is its quest for recognition through suffering. While the martyr may assert that its sacrifices are selfless, it often hopes that others will recognize and appreciate its devotion. When this does not happen, it can feel frustrated or misunderstood, fueling a cycle of victimization. This pattern is harmful, not only to the martyr but also to its relationships, which become strained and unbalanced. Moreover, the unconscious martyr uses its sacrifice as a form of emotional manipulation. By showing how much it has suffered or given, it can attempt to blame or control others, demanding their attention or loyalty. This creates relationships based on guilt rather than love or mutual respect. Jung offers a new way of understanding sacrifice rooted in individuation. Instead of completely sacrificing ourselves, we should seek a balance between giving and receiving. This involves recognizing our own needs and setting healthy boundaries. True sacrifice is not an act of self-denial, but an expression of love and generosity that respects both others and ourselves. Ultimately, letting go of the martyr archetype does not mean stopping helping, but transforming our relationship with sacrifice. Instead of giving from a place of lack or need, we can learn to give from a place of abundance and fullness. This shift not only frees us, but also strengthens our relationships, allowing us to connect with others in an authentic and balanced way. Jung describes relationships as constant exchanges of psychic energy, When we help others without clear boundaries, we risk draining our energy until complete exhaustion. This depletion affects not only our mental and emotional health, but also diminishes our ability to be effective in our relationships. One of the main causes of this exhaustion is a lack of awareness of our own needs. Many people who dedicate themselves to helping others do not take the time to recharge their own energy. Imagine a glass of water that is constantly emptying without being refilled. It will eventually be drained, unable to meet even the most basic needs. This energy depletion manifests not only physically, but also emotionally. Those who constantly help often experience feelings of frustration, irritability, or resentment. These feelings are signs that we have exceeded our limits and need to recalibrate our approach. Furthermore, energy depletion can lead to a disconnection with ourselves. By focusing so much on the needs of others, we neglect our own passions, interests, and goals. This creates an internal void that cannot be filled by helping others, but only by reconnecting with our essence. Jung suggests several strategies to manage this burnout. First, it is essential to set clear boundaries in our relationships. This doesn't mean being selfish, but rather acknowledging that we cannot give what we don't have. It's also important to practice self-care, whether through meditation, exercise, or simply taking time for our own needs. Finally, we need to learn to say no when necessary. Saying no doesn't mean abandoning others, but prioritizing our health and well-being so that we can continue to help effectively. By protecting our energy, we benefit not only ourselves, but also ensure that our help is genuine and sustainable. Individuation, a central concept in Jung's psychology, refers to the process of integrating all parts of our psyche, both conscious and unconscious, to achieve a state of wholeness and authenticity. However, when we become overly focused on helping others, we may divert our attention from this internal journey and hinder our own growth. Helping others, while noble, can become an escape from our own shadows. Often, those who dedicate their lives to others do so to avoid confronting their own insecurities, fears, or emotional wounds. This pattern creates an illusion of purpose, but at the expense of our personal development. The energy we could use to explore our depths is redirected outward, perpetuating a state of imbalance. Jung emphasizes that the unconscious does not remain passive in the face of this redirection. Often, it sends us signals in the form of recurring dreams, anxiety, or general dissatisfaction. These signals are calls to reconnect with our essence and prioritize our individuation. For example, someone who feels constant burnout from helping others may discover, through a symbolic dream, that their energy is being drained by neglecting their own needs. The impact can also manifest in difficulty establishing clear boundaries. By focusing on the well-being of others, we may lose sight of our own priorities and allow external demands to control our lives. This imbalance affects not only our mental and emotional health, but also limits our ability to be an authentic source of support for others. The process of individuation doesn't mean abandoning those who need our help, but rather learning to balance our external responsibilities with our internal needs. Jung suggests dedicating time to self-exploration through practices like active imagination, which allows us to engage in dialogue with the images and archetypes of the unconscious. He also emphasizes the importance of recognizing ourselves through our passions and individual goals, those that nourish our souls and allow us to thrive. When we prioritize our individuation, we not only benefit ourselves, but also become better helpers. From a state of balance and authenticity, we can offer genuine support, free from projections or unconscious expectations. This approach not only transforms our relationships, but also strengthens our connection with the world and with ourselves. Transference, a concept developed by Freud and expanded upon by Jung, occurs when a person projects unconscious emotions, desires, and conflicts onto another. In helping relationships, this dynamic can be particularly complex, and if not managed carefully, it can be detrimental to both the giver and the receiver. When we help others, it's common for them to project archetypal figures onto us, such as the protective father or the nurturing mother. While these projections can be flattering, they also carry significant responsibility. If we accept these projections without questioning them, we may end up being the recipients of intense emotions that do not belong to us, such as anger, fear, or dependency. For instance, a therapist working with a client may find that the client perceives them as an authoritative figure. To an absent father, this perception, while unconscious, can influence the dynamics of the relationship, creating tension or unrealistic expectations. If the therapist is not aware of this transference, they may find themselves trapped in a role they did not choose, which affects their ability to offer authentic support. Transference can also occur in everyday relationships. A friend who constantly seeks our help may project onto us the figure of a savior, expecting us to solve their problems, as if we have all the answers. While this dynamic may make us feel important, it can also be exhausting and unhealthy in the long run. To manage transference effectively, Jung suggests practicing self-observation and self-awareness. By recognizing our own projections, we can identify when we are accepting emotions or expectations that do not belong to us. Furthermore, it is essential to establish clear boundaries and encourage autonomy in those seeking our help. Rather than solving their problems, we can guide them to find their own solutions, promoting their personal growth. Transference, when managed consciously, can be a powerful tool for mutual learning. It allows us to explore the unconscious dynamics of our relationships and transform our interactions into opportunities for growth and healing. However, to achieve this, we must be willing to confront our own shadows and act from a place of balance and authenticity. Synchronicity, one of Jung's most revolutionary concepts, refers to the meaningful coincidence of events that are not causally related, but hold deep, subjective significance. According to Jung, these experiences are messages from the unconscious that guide us during moments of transformation or crisis. In the context of helping others, synchronicities may appear as warnings. For instance, a person who constantly feels exhausted while helping a friend may notice symbolic patterns in their life, such as repeatedly dreaming of a dry river or encountering minor difficulties that reflect their internal state. These experiences are not coincidences. They are signals from the unconscious urging us to reevaluate our actions and priorities. Synchronicities tend to occur more frequently during times of change, such as the beginning of a relationship, career transitions, or personal crises. Jung describes them as the universe's invitation to pause and reflect. For those who are constantly helping others, these signals may be a call to balance giving and receiving, reminding us that we cannot offer what we do not have. Recognizing and working with synchronicity requires us to open up to our intuition and pay attention to the symbols that emerge in our life. This does not mean searching for meanings in every detail, but being mindful of recurring patterns that reflect our psyche. By honoring these signals, we can make decisions that are more aligned with our well-being and restore balance in our relationships and actions. In a world that constantly demands our attention and energy, Jung emphasizes the importance of reclaiming our internal balance as an essential priority. Helping others can be deeply rewarding, but only if it comes from a place of personal stability. Without this balance, our actions become draining and ultimately unsustainable. The first step to reclaiming internal balance is to recognize our own needs. In our culture, sacrifice is often glorified as an act of selflessness, but Jung warns that this approach can lead to burnout. Helping others should not involve the denial of our own. On the contrary, taking care of ourselves is a prerequisite for supporting others in an authentic and effective way. A powerful tool that Jung suggests is imagination, a practice that allows us to interact with the images and emotions that arise from the unconscious. By dedicating time to this practice, we can identify the internal tensions and unresolved conflicts that affect our energy. This helps us establish clearer boundaries in our relationships and avoid emotional burnout. Another useful technique is to work with mandalas, symbolic representations of psychic wholeness. Drawing or meditating on a mandala not only calms the mind, but also connects us with our center, reminding us that we are an integral part of a greater whole. This exercise can be particularly helpful for those who feel their life is out of control due to external demands. Additionally, it is essential to cultivate a sense of self-compassion. Often, those who help others are very critical of themselves, feeling guilty for never doing enough. Jung encourages us to remember that we are not omnipotent and that our ability to help has its limits. Acknowledging and accepting these limits is not an act of selfishness, but of wisdom. Establishing clear boundaries is another crucial part of internal balance. This may mean learning to say no without feeling guilty, or delegating responsibilities in situations where we are not indispensable. These boundaries not only protect our energy, but also allow others to take an active role in their own lives. Finally, connecting with nature can be a powerful source of restoration. Jung believed that nature has the ability to reconnect our psyche with its archetypal base. A walk in the forest, the sound of flowing water, or simply gazing at the sky can have a profound impact on our mind, helping us recharge our energy and regain our perspective. When we integrate these practices into our daily lives, we begin to experience a profound change. Our help stops being a compulsive act driven by need and becomes a conscious expression of love and generosity. From this place of balance, we are not only more effective, but also happier and more whole. In Jung's view, alchemy is more than an ancient practice of transforming metals. It is a metaphor for the process of inner transformation applied to the act of help. Conscious alchemy involves transforming our unconscious motivations into a balanced and complete act, where giving and receiving merge in harmony. Helping consciously requires deep introspection to distinguish between authentic motivations and those driven by our shadows. Jung emphasizes that we can only offer what we possess internally. If we help from a place of lack, our assistance will be limited and potentially harmful. In contrast, when we are at peace with ourselves, our help flows effortlessly and without expectation. The first step of this alchemy is to recognize the lead of our unconscious intentions. For example, if we help in order to feel valued, this desire becomes a burden for both us and those we are trying to support. Transforming this lead into gold involves accepting our motivations without judgment and working on our individuation to free ourselves from the need for external approval. Conscious aiding also requires a shift in how we perceive others. Instead of viewing them as needing help or incapable, we begin to recognize their ability to overcome their own challenges. In alchemical terms, this equates to empowering others to do their own inner work. This approach not only respects the autonomy of the other, but also fosters healthier and more balanced relationships. An example of this practice would be transforming the way we help a friend going through a crisis. Instead of trying to solve their problems directly, we can offer emotional support and resources that allow them to find their own answers. This approach not only empowers them, but also frees us from the burden of feeling responsible for their fate. Another crucial aspect of conscious alchemy is the integration of our shadows. As Jung explains, our shadows contain rejected aspects of ourselves that we often project onto others. By integrating these parts, we stop seeking outside ourselves for what we lack inside. This process enables us to help without relying on validation or control, transforming the act of helping into an expression of authenticity. Finally, the alchemy of conscious helping requires cultivating gratitude and detachment. Being thankful for the ability to give connects us to a deeper sense of purpose, while detachment allows us to offer help without expecting anything in return. This balance is essential to avoid burnout and to stay aligned with our own needs and values. Essentially, conscious alchemy transforms the act of helping into a spiritual process where we not only contribute to the well-being of others, but also evolve as individuals. It's a continuous journey that invites us to explore our depths and act from a place of integrity, wisdom, and compassion. Jung teaches us that helping should not be a sacrifice that leads to exhaustion, but a balanced expression of our inner light. By integrating our shadows, setting boundaries, and reconnecting with our needs, we can transform our relationship with the act of giving. Helping consciously not only benefits those around us, but also enriches our own lives, allowing us to evolve into a more complete and authentic version of ourselves. Assisting others can be a rewarding experience, but it can also make us emotionally vulnerable if we don't take steps to protect ourselves. Jung emphasized that psychic energy is limited, and like any resource, should be managed carefully. Emotional protection is not selfishness, but an act of wisdom that ensures our relationships nourish us rather than deplete us. A lack of emotional protection can lead us to a state of saturation. For example, individuals in support roles, such as therapists, teachers, or caregivers, often absorb the emotions of others, such as stress, sadness, or anger, which can create a silent yet constant exhaustion. This phenomenon occurs because we tend to empathize deeply with those we are helping, making us more receptive to their emotional states. While empathy is a virtue, failing to manage its effects can lead us to carry burdens that aren't ours. One of the first steps towards emotional protection is learning to separate our emotions from those of others. This involves recognizing when we are reacting to something personal and when we are absorbing someone else's energy. A useful technique is daily reflection, taking a few minutes to review our interactions and detect which emotions we have internalized. This habit helps us identify patterns and set boundaries before we reach the point of exhaustion. Another powerful tool is visualization. Jung believed in the power of symbolism to connect with our inner selves. Imagine a protective shield around you that allows positive emotions to reach you while filtering out negative ones. This symbolic exercise not only reinforces our intention to protect ourselves, but also helps us cultivate a healthy and balanced presence in our interactions. It also connects us to our internal capacity to manage emotional dynamics. Additionally, emotional protection includes saying no when necessary. Though this can be challenging, especially if we have a strong desire to help, setting clear boundaries is an act of self-love. Saying no doesn't mean abandoning others, but recognizing our limitations and prioritizing our mental health. By protecting ourselves, we not only take care of ourselves, but we also ensure that our help is genuine and sustainable. Finally, it's essential to create spaces for self-care. This can include activities that recharge us, like practicing meditation, exercising, or spending time in nature. Jung emphasized the connection with the natural world as a way to restore our psychic energy. By cultivating habits that nourish us, we not only strengthen our emotional resilience, but also develop a solid foundation from which we can support others more effectively. Emotional protection is not a luxury, but a conscious act of taking care of our well-being while dedicating ourselves to helping others. By doing this, we can offer our best selves without sacrificing our internal stability. In Jungian psychology, the shadow represents the unconscious parts of our psyche that we have repressed or denied. These shadows, though hidden, influence our decisions and behaviors, particularly in the realm of helping others. Jung emphasizes that integrating our shadow not only enriches our personality, but also transforms the way we interact with the world. When we help others, our shadows can manifest in subtle yet significant ways. For instance, a person who constantly seeks to solve others' problems may be repressing a sense of uselessness or emptiness. In this case, the act of helping isn't entirely altruistic, but rather an unconscious way of filling an inner void. Ignoring these motivations can lead to unbalanced dynamics, where our assistance becomes a form of control or imposition of our vision onto others. Integrating the shadow involves a process of honest self-exploration. First, we must recognize the emotions or thoughts that arise while helping. Do we feel satisfaction, frustration, resentment? These feelings are indicators of our internal motivations. Reflecting on this allows us to understand which aspects of our shadow influence our actions. Jung suggests working with archetypal images to facilitate this integration. For example, we might envision a conversation with our shadow, asking it what it desires from us and how we can reconcile with it. This internal dialogue helps us accept our imperfections and act from a place of balance rather than being swept away by unconscious impulses. Another important aspect of shadow integration is recognizing that others have their shadows too. When we help someone, it's possible they project their unresolved emotions onto us, seeing us as savior or controlling figures. Understanding this dynamic allows us to navigate helping relationships with greater clarity and empathy, without absorbing others' projections. Shadow integration also prompts us to reconsider our relationship with light, namely, the conscious and positive aspects of our personality. Often, we become so focused on being good or altruistic that we neglect our own authenticity. By balancing our light and shadow, we can offer more genuine help, less shaped by external expectations. Finally, Jung invites us to see the integration of light and shadow as an ongoing process. It's not about reaching a perfect state, but rather accepting our duality as human beings. By integrating these opposing parts, we transform our way of helping. We stop giving out of need or ego and begin to give from a place of authenticity and wholeness. Shadow integration not only improves our relationship with ourselves, but also strengthens our connections with others. By accepting our own complexities, we become more understanding and open, creating more balanced and meaningful relationships. Ultimately, this process allows us to help in a way that enriches both others and ourselves.